Let's quickly create an old temple matte painting. Let's select an A3 size landscape document and let's give it a name, Old Temple. And let's put a resolution of 150. Right. So here we have taken a transparent document. Now let's add elements to this document. We'll first select this lake. So we will just use the rectangular marquee tool and just select this lake, and we will give some feather to it, and then we will drag this lake and place it inside this document. We can just stretch it a little bit. We can stretch it till here. Right. Now let's get the mountains. So let's select these mountains. So we will just select the mountain properly. We don't need sky here. We will only select the mountains. So here I have selected the sky. Now we will apply mask to it and we will inverse the mask. We'll simply hit Ctrl I in PC or Command I in Mac. So now the mountain is selected and we will just drag this mountain and just put it inside this document. So we can just adjust it like this. And we will also do one more thing, that is we will extend the document here so that we can see the mountains clearly. Right, this much is okay. Now here we will just right click on the mask thumbnail for this mountain layer and we will just select apply layer mask. Right, now we will get the image of sky. We just drag the image, keep it below all the layers, so something like this. Right, then we can quickly rename the layers, lake and mountains. Right, then the thing we'll be doing is we will now just extend this lake. You can keep it a little bit above the mountain layer. You can just extend it till here. Right, this looks better. Now let's get a waterfall image. So this is the waterfall image. Let's drag it and let's try to just adjust it properly here. So we will just stretch it a little bit and then we will click this waterfall layer to the mountain layer. So we'll just hold Alt and PC or Option and Mac and just click in between the waterfall layer and the mountain layer. So we can see here. Now let's try to just stretch the waterfalls properly. So we can just extend it. Right. So now we will just apply a hide all mask to this waterfalls layer. We can just rename it waterfall, and then we will just use the brush and we will just paint with white color on this mountain. So something like this. So we can also just erase the edges. We want a smooth transition here. So something like this. So we can just extend it properly. Right. Then we will get the temple. So here is the temple. We'll select the temple. So we'll just select the temple, and then we'll just apply a mask to it. You just need to select it properly, and we'll apply a mask to it, and we will invert the mask, and we'll simply drag this temple and keep it over here. We'll take two more duplicates, but before that we can just confirm the mask. We'll right click on the mask thumbnail for the temple layer and select apply layer mask, and we'll take two more copies here. We can just make it a little bit small, and we'll just take one more copy here, so something like this. So then we'll just select all these three layers, and we'll convert all the layers to a smart object. So we'll then just adjust it properly, and we'll apply a mask to this, and then we will just erase the bottom portions. So something like this. Right. So the next step we'll be doing is we will now add some fog effects to the scene. So what we'll be doing is we will just use the curves, and we can just reduce the brightness a little bit, so something like this. Right. And then we will now just take an empty layer above this waterfalls layer, and we can just use a brush, a fog brush. I will give the link for this fog brush in the description. So here is the fog brush. So we will just add some fog here, so something like this. So it should look foggy behind, so something like this. Right. So then the next step we'll be doing is we'll create a sunlight. Just we'll take a new layer, and then we will just change the blending mode to linear dodge, and we will also use a soft rounded brush, and we will just create a sunlight over here, and we'll take one more layer, and this time we will use a hard rounded brush, and we'll just create a sunlight, so we can just see. So it looks very light here. Okay, so we can just rename these layers sunlight, and or we can say sun, and this one sun glow. Right. Then the thing we'll be doing here is we will now add some color lookup presets. So we'll just select the color lookup preset here, and we will just select one nice preset, which is going to be this tension green. Okay, this tension green looks nice. Right. And then one thing that we'll be doing is we will add one more curves adjustment layer, and then we will just reduce the brightness even further, so something like this. Right. And we will also add something called the hue and saturation here, and we will colorize to remove the natural colors here, and also we will just select the color of our choice here. So we can select something greenish here, something like this, but we don't want the effect to be too intense. So we can do one thing, we'll just inverse the mask for the hue and saturation by hitting Ctrl I in PC or Command I in Mac, and we can just reduce the flow amount here to, let's say, 16%, and we will keep white as the foreground color, and we will just paint colors, so something like this. But we can do one thing, we will just go back a little bit. We will reduce the flow amount even further, so we don't want the color to be too intense, just it should be mild, so something like this, right. And the another thing that we'll be doing is we will add a color balance adjustment, and we can just increase the green amount here, so something like this, right. And one last thing is we will also add a gradient for applying some fog in front. So here the gradient fill is there and there is some fog, but we will just reduce the fog here. So we can just reduce it a little bit by reducing its opacity here, so just somewhat, so something like this, right. And we'll just reduce it even further. We don't want too much opacity here because we want the fog to be just a light, right. And one last thing we'll be doing is we will just apply the brightness and contrast, and we can slightly reduce the brightness here. We can see the temple clearly, right. And also one last thing we can do is we'll just take one more layer and we will select a brush. We'll select the same this fog brush, and here we will try to just increase the fog amount, something like this. So we can just increase the fog amount in some places, just like this. So something like this. Here we have quickly created a matte painting of an old temple.